Alright, so today I'm back with yet another video, and today we will go over the entire FC Barcha vs Manshine City match. And yeah, I know that it's like 4 chapters and extremely short. However, I asked you guys in the community tab, and there were a lot of positive feedback to it. I've also taken out all of the bastard Munchen related stuff, so that we only have the match. Anyway, I won't hold you guys any longer. Just be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment which of the Neo Egoist League teams is your favorite. With that out of the way, let's get into it. So to begin the match between FC Barcha and Manshine City, we start by entering a flashback into the moment where it all started for Nagi, which was, of course, right on the stairs when Rio accidentally bumped into Nagi, which made him lose his phone, but somehow he clutched it by jumping down and catching it with his foot, and Nagi knows that it was thanks to Rio finding him that got him to start playing football. We then see Nagi, who thinks back to firstly the time when he styled on Isagi's team in the first selection, but also when he betrayed Rio in the second selection, as well as when the two of them made up and made the super goal in the Neo Egoist League. Nagi thinks of the fire, the frustration he overcame, all of those in order to beat Isagi, and now he once again needs to become someone new, thinking back to when he, with burning determination, told Rio that the two of them needed to desperately change, and while looking colder than ever, he asked Rio to give him a new fire. Because if Nagi can't dream of being the world's best, then it's all over for the two of them. And then finally, we get back from the honestly pretty boring flashback and onto the real deal, which is of course the match between Manshine City and FC Barcha, where we see Nagi starting it off by passing to Rio. Rio looks towards Nagi and tells him to blast off, and Nagi, a bit nonchalantly, just responds with, "Yes, boss." We then finally get a small panel of Bachira, which it feels like we haven't seen for about 3 years, honestly. Anyway, under him we see Rio getting the ball and saying that in this match, at a minimum, Nagi and he need to make a case for raising their salary ranks, thinking that if they aren't in the top 23 after this match, then they will disappear before reaching their World Cup dream. Rio says that currently Nagi is at the 11th spot, while Rio himself is at the 16th spot, and he knows that if their value drops, then they'll be right on the edge of dropping out, and because of that, they need to change how they do things, and that they can't just go for their own goals, which we see right here as Rio is passing, and it goes over to Nagi, who coldly just heads it away, because both of them know that they need to make plays that'll help the team win and go all in on proving their value. Otoya, watching this go down, says that they are aiming for a devoted post play and says that it's rare for Nagi. Meanwhile, Bachira, on Otoya's side, asks Nagi if he's getting scared. However, Nagi in his own head thinks that it's not like they won't try for their own goals and that they can't forget to shoot when the moment's right. Nagi asks Rio if he's right, and Rio tells him that he is spot on, as Rio thinks that if they stay like this, then they are as good as dead, and he then tells someone to enjoy the change as he makes a backheel pass. Now who is it that is getting this pass from Rio? Well, it's none other than the Princess of Blue Lock and the future #1 striker, Hayoma Chigiri, who we see is sprinting for everything that he's got, even making his Pink Panther come out, and tells Rio that he's got a good eye and calls him a chameleon. Otoya looks back and is a bit surprised and says that Rio isn't coordinating with Nagi like usual. Rio also looks back and tells Chigiri that right there is his favorite angle, which is, of course, none other than the famous 44-degree Panther sniper. Now Chigiri doesn't just shoot a shot towards the goal, but he shoots one of the most perfect shots ever, which the goalkeeper obviously had no chance of catching. Anyway, with Chigiri's wonder goal, he gives Manshine City the lead, with the score being 1-0. After that spectacular goal, Chigiri rushes towards Rio, and the two of them celebrate with a high five. However, after that, we fast forward to seeing Bachira having control of the ball. He looks intense as he says that the monster has arrived. Rio behind Bachira screams to his teammates that Bachira is coming at a rapid speed, and Agi tells Nagi to join him and try to press Bachira, which Nagi agrees to. However, they heavily underestimated Bachira, as he first makes a lift and then goes right into a roulette, which firstly just looks so insane cool, but at the same time, I can't think about how goofy he looks. Anyway, Bachira's moves leave Agi in total awe, as this is probably the first time he's seen someone with this many crazy moves and dribbles. Bachira flies over Nagi with the ball, before he starts getting a huge smile on himself, as he looks ecstatic and calls himself a god. Nagi, who's currently under Bachira, sees this and is in pure awe as he calls it awesome. And then Bachira delivers the final blow, as with the ball still being in the air, he kicks the ball with his right foot and makes an absolute wonder goal, and with that goal, he also makes the scores even. Now if the game hasn't heated up enough already, We also see that the masters are getting ready to join in on the fun, as Lavinio looks super hyped as he compliments Bachira and says that it looks super fun and that he is joining in. Chris couldn't agree more with Lavinio and says that it's the master's showtime, and we then right away start the match again with Manshine City being in control of the ball, and Nagi is looking at the field closely as he knows that the situation is changing. Just then, however, we see Agi, who's getting control of the ball and telling Nagi to focus, telling him that even if it's for the team or his own goals, half measures will only ruin him. We then see Rio, who's on Nagi's other side, and tells him to shut up and to stay back. While Rio and Agi are acting like a fighting couple, Nagi is in his own head and thinks that he still can't do anything and that even an assist would be fine right now, thinking that his plan is to contribute and then raise his value and in turn survive with Rio. And now just look at this insane trap Nagi hits us with. Like, I already knew that his traps were godly, but this is just a new high. Even the no-name from FC Barcha couldn't believe his eyes. Anyway, Nagi gets the ball down towards the ground and passes it to Rio, which Rio compliments him for and tells him that they will strike through and make a direct 1-2 with each other. But just then we see someone's foot coming into the picture and telling them that this pass pattern, he's seen it more times than his own parents, and it's none other than the ninja Otoya, who comes in with an insane amount of aura as he looks wild as he steals away the ball from Rio and Nagi. He looks at them and tells them that the same trick won't work twice on the goat Otoya. Rio is just totally mind-blown by this and can't believe that Otoya managed to read their play, not to mention how he sneakily came from behind and cut into Rio's blind spot. We also see Nagi on the side, who realizes that they are now in real danger, and he begins to sprint with all that he can back towards their goal, while saying that Otoya and Bachira are getting fired up in the climax. The ball then goes over to Lavinio, who tells his players to speed it up and to blow away the Manshine City players with their imagination, which is something that Bachira is more than on board with as he looks ecstatic. We also see Otoya, who agrees, but not only that, as he is also able to completely sneak behind Chris Prince without any trouble at all. Bachira spots Otoya in the box and sends away a magical cross towards him. Nagi is looking at this and is just in pure amazement as the ball falls towards Otoya, who's in the middle of Chris and Niu, but even then he jumps up towards the sky, and with fire in his eyes, he shoots an insane and outright wild shot towards the goal, which obviously goes right into the goal, and as Nagi watched this go down, he concluded that the fire of those two is from those who believe that they're the center of the world. We then see Bachira and Otoya celebrating together as Bachira says that they have gotten the lead, and Otoya agrees by saying that they have only one more goal to go now. We then see the Panther Chigiri calling it a super goal. Meanwhile, some random defender from Manshine City, who thinks that he is someone, tells everyone to pay attention, and that if they lose here, then they'll lose everything. However, Nagi doesn't pay him any mind, as he knows that he's felt this feeling before, so he knows that after all, only those who get fired up can compete on the world stage for being the best. But that makes him wonder how he can get fired up right now and get into the same mindset that they are in, as he isn't sure who this new version of him is that can believe that he can become the world's best. We then see Rio coming behind Nagi and saying that, as expected, it looks like this team thing isn't working and that they are in really big trouble. Nagi looks back and just says Rio's name. However, just then, Rio gets his tongue out and says that it's great and that they'll do something exciting instead, which leaves Nagi shocked. But Rio looks completely fired up as he even has a really cool chameleon chilling by his shoulder as he tells Nagi that if they score a goal now and turn it around, then they'll be in the center of the world. He gets a light smirk as he says that it's enough of a reason to get Nagi fired up and asks him if he's right. Nagi looks just at Rio with big eyes and says that Rio has become strong. Rio then looks even more fired up and wild as he has the football in his hand and tells Nagi that to become the world's best with him, Rio is really ready to become anything, and Nagi then just continues gazing at Rio and says that he's strong and dazzling. He has Rio in front of him and thinks that even though Nagi has lost his fire, Rio is still ready to give someone like him a new dream. We then see Rio just aura farming with him, spinning the ball on his finger and telling Nagi for them to go out there and get the 2 remaining points, and calls Nagi a prodigy, which is always just nice when they call each other nicknames. Rio then starts getting a big smirk on himself as he says that they are the heroes. We then get to Nagi, who looks a bit lost to be honest, but he thinks that until recently, Rio would freak out when things got bad, and without Nagi by his side, Rio couldn't do anything, and this makes Nagi wonder when Rio became so goddamn cool. Nagi, still looking absolutely miserable, tells Rio that he is on board with the plan and calls him boss. This makes Rio very happy, as he even gets his tongue out, typical Blue Lock behavior. Nagi then continues his little inner monologue and thinks that even though Rio is still a bit scared, he still gets it and understand him. His eyes start to light up a bit as he says that he will fire Rio up, and for himself to do that, he has to get himself fired up as well. After that, the match restarts with Nagi passing Rio. Nagi thinks that if they score another point, then it's all over and that they need 2 goals more. He looks over to Rio and wonders where Rio would like to pass the ball to, and it's like they are sharing the same brain as Nagi gets right to the spot Rio wanted him to and passes him. Nagi makes yet another savage trap that flies over the FC Barcha players' heads as he thinks to himself that he wants to become the Nagi that Rio wants him to be. With the ball over his head, he just says Rio's name over and over again, which sure is totally normal. He then actually does a cold header as he jumps up and meets with the ball. With Nagi breaking through them, he wonders what he should do and if he should shoot the ball. However, he looks towards the goal and thinks that he's a little bit too far away from it. He tries to look over to Rio and wonders what Rio would do right here. However, to his surprise, he doesn't spot Rio but instead Lavinho, who is right by his side with an insane aura around himself as he gets to Nagi and steals the ball. Lavinho looks intensely towards Nagi and tells him that soccer isn't a passing sport. Rio looks over and can't believe his eyes. Meanwhile, Nagi realizes the trouble that they are in and that if Lavinho steals it, then they are done for. But luckily, the GOAT Chris Prince sweeps in and steals it back from Lavinho. Meanwhile, he screams to the future. He gets a smirk on himself as he tells his team that they are not done yet. Lavinho looks furious as he looks back at Chris and calls him a show-off. Meanwhile, Nagi on the side just calls him master. Chris then looks intense as he says, "Okay, striker," and then dribbles past Lavinho. But to Nagi's surprise, he wasn't talking to Nagi as he completely ignored him, which left Nagi stunned. We then get back to Chris, as he says that he won't give a future to egoists who don't chase their ideals, and he then tells the Blue Lockers to transcend reality as he sends away the ball flying towards the penalty area. Rio looks at the incoming ball in total disbelief as he doesn't know what is happening and just says Chris's name. Chris then awakens some sort of inner demon as he screams, telling Rio to score and that Chris wants to see his future. Chris's words make Rio's eyes light up and they start to glow from pure determination and excitement. After that, Rio hits Otoya with the same move that he used on Chris Prince in the last chapter and gets behind him easily, also leaving Otoya quite impressed with his abilities. However, if you thought that we were done here, then you would be so wrong, as Rio doesn't only copy Otoya's sneak behind move, but he also copies Otoya's shot from the last chapter. So he jumps up towards the sky, and this makes Nagi's eyes widen as he now understands that Rio can already really live on his own. Anyway, Rio gets his whole chameleon out, and this just looks so awesome as he shoots the ball. And come on now, there's no way that the GOAT Rio would miss, so he scores with ease and makes the scores even. He then coldly lands down on the ground, and I know that I'm glazing Rio like crazy right now, but he looks so cool. We then see Chris Prince, who is ecstatic and fist bumps the sky and tells Rio that this is it, and copies Lavinho's saying and calls this a golazo. We then see Lavinho scratching his head and looking frustrated as he says that their time is up. We then see Rio breathing heavily, and it looks like he was possessed, but he then gets back to his regular self, and in an instant, he turns around towards Nagi and apologizes because he shot on his own, which is just wild that he feels the need to apologize for that. But as Rio looks absolutely destroyed, Nagi tells him that it's okay. He says that it's good, and that if Rio gets fired up, then that's his answer. Rio is just confused to the max and doesn't understand what Nagi is on about, but Nagi then tells him that he thinks that he has been too reliant on Rio, and that just as a kid, he believed that Rio would always be there for him, but now, he will show Rio that he can get fired up on his own. He then looks super fired up as his eyes are literally burning, and he apologizes to Rio for being such a pain, and looking at Rio's face, he kind of looks sad and almost destroyed by hearing this. We then see Nagi, who looks completely insane, as he has his death aura around himself. He looks intensely at Rio, and tells him that he doesn't need to pass to him anymore, telling Rio that he won't pass to him either, and that Nagi is capable of winning on his own. Rio looks extremely confused as this is basically coming out of nowhere, and he just says Nagi's name. He then gathers more of his sentences and asks Nagi to wait and tells him that if they don't score the next goal, then it's over for them. However, Nagi tells Rio that he's wrong, and that it's not over for them, but that it would only be over for Nagi himself. Telling Rio that he just secured his survival with his last play, Rio, a bit hesitant, says that Nagi is right. Nagi begins to walk away, but Rio isn't going to let it end this easily, so he still tries to tell Nagi that he should at least combo together, Nagi, who continues to walk, tells Rio that this approach that they have been doing isn't going to work anymore, saying that if Rio is with him, then Nagi will end up relying too much on Rio. This has made Nagi understand that this kind of soccer won't make them the world's best, telling Rio that he's already able to play on his own and saying that he will follow in his footsteps and do the same. Rio looks completely crushed and shocked as he doesn't even know what to say. However, Nagi tells him that for the first time ever, he's scared that Rio isn't going to be there with him, which only makes Rio look even more sad. After that, the game is back on, with FC Barcha starting with the ball and Nagi running up on the field. Bachira passes the ball, while Rio tries once more to get some sense into Nagi. However, Nagi isn't able to focus on Rio's words as he tells himself to go and to change this fear of his into fire, which is exactly what he does as he jumps up high into the air and catches the ball in the air. Even Bachira on the side is in complete shock as he didn't know that Nagi could jump that high. Nagi gets the ball, and he's looking super locked in as he passes the ball over to Agi, who's firstly confused, but then gets a smirk on himself as he laughs and says that Nagi is finally beginning to play on his own as he passes Chigiri the ball. Chigiri, who's now on board with the attack, tells them to go for a swift attack and not to slow down, and passes the ball over to Nagi, who looks at the incoming ball and thinks that Rio will disappear and that maybe he won't be able to play soccer with Rio anymore, saying that he didn't think that this future would come. But as he says that, he makes one of the craziest backtraps ever as he lets the ball roll over before he kicks it over him, even leaving the no-name FC Barcha defender completely in shock. Nagi then continues his little conversation with himself as he says that he doesn't want it to end this way, as he still wants to play with Rio, telling Rio that he'll become strong and for Rio to stay close to him. We then see Nagi trading passes with Agi, which makes Rio feel really left behind as he just says Nagi's name. Anyway, Agi manages to hold off Hayate and gets the ball over to Nagi, who's beginning to look completely locked in. After that, Nagi pulls out his crazy tricks as he makes an awesome feint shot, which looks completely awesome as he tells Rio that he'll become someone who can dream of becoming the best on their own. We then see Nagi's eyes beginning to look completely wild as they are burning. However, just then we begin seeing some shurikens on the ground, and just then the ninja Otoya appears as he comes in Nagi's way and asks him how many stages he will do. I'm guessing that he saw Nagi's goal against Isagi and is referring to that. Anyway, Nagi gets completely taken aback by Otoya's presence. Otoya tells him that he won't let Nagi get any closer and that they have countermeasures for his move. It gets dark around Nagi as he legit can't believe it. He thinks that they completely saw through him and wonders if he should shoot. However, he knows that there are 3 players in front of him. He looks at the incoming Otoya, which only makes him more nervous, before he sees one small spot in the goal and tells himself to come on. However, just then, Rio appears on Nagi's side and screams his name. Rio has an immense aura around him, and as their eyes meet, Nagi says his name. Nagi sees Otoya coming extremely close and thinks about what he said about doing this alone. However, just then, his aura starts to disappear, and he instead changes his alone approach to doing it together with Rio instead. Rio looks at the incoming ball and is ready to give it his literal all to save Nagi's and his dream. However, just then, you think that they will live happily ever after. However, Bachira then comes in front of the ball and steals it. He tells Nagi that this won't do. He has an intense fire in his eyes as he looks over to Nagi, telling him that if you can't die here and go on alone, then he's failed as an egoist. Anyway, Bachira gets the ball and starts sprinting with all that he can, and Rio screams at the defenders to stop him, but when Bachira locks in, then there's truly no one who can stop him. He passes to one of his teammates, who passes it back to Bachira, who, as he sees the ball coming, jumps up and scores the final goal of the match, which means that FC Barcha wins the match.